if you don't have the PDF, you can find it in the chat, and you can also find it here on this screen. It's bit.ly/beginner Zoom. All right, so before we get too far into this, what I want to know is, what do you already know about hosting a Zoom meeting? And so I want you to think before you do anything, give you some wait time. What are 2 things you already know about hosting? Not about participating, because I'm assuming you can participate since you're actually here in the Zoom meeting, but what do you know about hosting? And when you're ready, in about one minute, so don't do it yet, I'm going to ask you to click on this image for slide number 2 that says Padlet, and that will take you to a new application called Padlet, and you will have an opportunity to share your ideas. So what is it that you already know about hosting a Zoom meeting? And when you're ready, go ahead and click on the Padlet icon in this screen, or in your slideshow, in your PDF, and it should take you to a screen that looks like this. And all you have to do is, down at the bottom, you can hit the little pink plus button, and it will allow you to add a post. All right, and if you're still adding, that's totally fine. We're going to talk about this just a little bit, and then we'll also talk about the app Padlet for just a second. All right, so as I'm looking, I see that a lot of you know how to allow students to enter the Zoom, that you can mute, you know how to host a meeting, you know how to schedule a meeting and get the link to families, share audio. That's awesome, because that was something that was hard for me. Make sure to check the waiting room. That's a great tip. Know how to screen share, and know you need proper settings, and have a second person to read the chat comments. Those are all really, really great ideas. And those are a lot of things that you guys already have a basic knowledge of how Zoom works. And so that's awesome. If you want to continue adding to this, you can. I just want to say just a moment for Padlet. Within here, yes, this is a Zoom training, but I also want to take this opportunity to expose you to some other apps and extensions that can help engage your learners. And so if you don't want to do some of those extensions like Padlet, we'll do a Jamboard later, you don't have to, but part of doing this is being able to practice and get exposed to other apps as well. So I thank you for participating and checking this out. If you want to know more about Padlet, I'm happy to answer questions at the end. All right, so now we're going to go back into our presentation and get started again. So I already talked about myself. I like to do that a lot. Here's our objectives. We're going to talk about basic Zoom settings, and I'll be honest, this is going to take a little bit of time, because if you get your Zoom settings right, that's going to make the rest of what you do within Zoom so much easier. We're going to talk about scheduling and sending invites, practice tools like screen sharing, whiteboard, breakout rooms. We'll talk about reporting features just a little bit, and then I'm hoping that by the end you'll have maybe a half hour to check out some different activities that you can do on Zoom with your students that help to build community during synchronous learning. All right, and again, the format that we're going to follow is we're going to participate, and so I'll present, you guys will interact. You're also getting an opportunity to reflect throughout. There will be a few times to think about how you might use Zoom within your own class. And then you'll also get an opportunity to apply some of the things that we talk about. So the first thing I want you to do is we're going to experiment with breakout rooms. And I know that a lot of you have seen them. Some of you may have even participated in them. But I want you to get an opportunity to see some activities that you can do within your schools or within your classes. If you're taking the Shifting Our Schools classes, you probably have already done this, so you're really good and you already have some things to think about. But we're going to be playing a game called 5 Commonalities in 5 Minutes. And this is geared for students, and it's geared for breakout rooms. And here's how it works. Your job is to identify 5 things in your group that you all have in common. And the biggest thing is at least one needs to be outside of the box. So maybe you've ridden a dirt bike, or you've all lived outside the US, or you visited Grand Coulee Dam. So I'm going to send you to breakout rooms very shortly. You and your team work together for 5 minutes to come up with 5 things your group has in common. When you have them, you can go ahead and add them to the chat. Any questions before we get started? All right, so I'm going to send you to breakout rooms. In this case, if there's only one of you in that breakout room, that's a problem. So just let me know. If you have a question, down in on the bottom of your breakout room is a tab to ask for help, and that's going to be an important tab to know for your students. So if you need help, please check it out. All right, so now we're looking at scheduling and inviting. And the first stop there is with settings. And so again, as I mentioned before, I was going to talk about joining, and then I realized if you're here, you know how to join. So here's how it's going to work here. I'm going to walk you through settings, and then I'm going to show you how to find your settings on your screen. And then you're going to have a few moments, actually a few moments as in 10 moments, 10 minutes, in order to practice setting your own settings so you'll be good to go. So how you get started is you're going to navigate to zoom.us. In the top right hand, you select sign in with Google, use your KSD email, and this is going to take you to the navigation toolbar. So on that navigation toolbar is where you can go to profile, meetings, webinars, recordings, settings, and then look at your account profile. So one thing that you need to know is webinars is not enabled for teachers. That may be something down the road, but for now it's not enabled. All right, so we're going to start in profile, and here is what kind of changes that can be made. You can change your personal info, your personal ID, sign-in email, date, time, formatting, calendar, contact integration, sign-in password, and host key. You cannot change your user type, which in this case is basic, and you cannot change the capacity of people within your room. You're maxed out at 100 people within a Zoom room. If you want a challenge, and you will be seeing these challenges as we go, feel free to upload a picture of yourself or adjust your information to reflect your role. But I'm not going to ask you to do that. If you want to do it, feel free to do that on your own time. All right, when we are in our navigation toolbar, when we're looking at settings, you're going to have 3 types of settings: meeting, recording, and telephone. And I apologize in advance. This is long, but these are important. So the first one we're talking about is meetings, and they're broken down into 6 categories. You've got security, schedule, in-meeting basic, in-meeting advanced, email notification, and other. So here's where changes can be made. You can change your waiting room. You can embed your passcode for your personal meeting ID, your invite link for one-click join, which is what you had today when you joined the class through the link I provided. You've got only authenticated users can join meetings, and only authenticated users can join meetings from the web client, so from the web toolbar. The things you cannot change, these are mandatory by the district, require a passcode every time when you're scheduling a new meeting, an instant meeting, a PMI meeting, or when participants are joining by phone. You can't change that. We have to require a passcode now. All right, so, and there it is. That's part of security. You can see I added that highlight after I'd made the bar or the page. All right, so now we're getting into schedule meeting. And so you'll notice before we get started here, I have recommendations. I don't have recommendations for everything, but these are the ones that I would encourage you to use because they're either going to make setting your meetings easier, or they're going to make working within your meeting better. So you don't have to use them, but those are the things that I would recommend. All right, so in your meetings, you can change host and participant video. That means either it's on or off when people join. You can change the audio type. You can join, but you can allow students to join before host, enable personal meeting ID, where you can use your personal meeting ID to schedule a meeting or an instant meeting. mute participants, or upcoming meeting reminders. Here are my recommendations. So start all meetings with video off. It's just better for everybody when you do that. Enable telephone and computer audio, especially if you have younger kids and you're not sure what device the family is using. Sometimes when my son had meetings our sons had meetings in the spring, sometimes they were using our phone, and we had devices, and so it's important to be able to enable both of those. Do not, under any circumstances, let the students join before the host. That's only asking for problems, especially if you haven't trained your students yet. I would also encourage you to disable personal meeting ID. And here's why. Those codes never change. And if you share your personal meeting ID for all of your meetings, it doesn't matter if you've invited somebody to that meeting. If they have the code, they can join. So you can't control that. Doing regular meetings will allow you to, those codes change every time. And so I would encourage you as much as possible, use the regular meeting settings, not the personal meeting ID.
Casey, I have a question about codes. Would you recommend just setting up a Zoom link for your class for the whole year so that kids, and then that gets posted in Google Classroom and kids just go to that every time? Or do you recommend setting up a different link every time?
For me, I feel most comfortable setting a new link each time. You don't have to do that, but that's how I feel most comfortable, because again, I can control what I can control, which is that code. But once I send it out, people can share it where they want to. And so for me, as a middle school teacher, my preference is to set a new code each time. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The other thing I would recommend muting your participants, because you never know what's happening in the student's background. And then encourage that upcoming meeting reminder. More than one time, I have forgot I had a meeting, but once I had that meeting reminder, it was like, oh yeah, I need to be there in 10 minutes. And so I would encourage you to enable that. All right, so now we're looking at in-meeting basics, and there's a whole lot of things that changes can be made to. My recommendations are enable chat, so that part of the glory and benefit of Zoom is that you can have people interacting both verbally, and you can have them interacting through text. And so that's a great thing, because we know that our students need to be able to practice communicating. However, I would disable private chat. I don't know if it's a control freak in me, but I don't like it when my students are messaging back and forth and I can't see it. So disable that private chat. Start your screen sharing off with host only. If you want to enable it so other people can share down the road, that's great. But start with it as only you being the host, or as the host being the only one who can share. I would also encourage you to enable whiteboard, and also enable those reaction and nonverbal feedback links. When you get into those advanced settings for meetings, again, there's a bunch of different things. My recommendations: enable breakout rooms. They seem scary before you start them, and there's going to take some training, which we'll talk about, but the breakout room can be really powerful, even with your students. Disable that far end camera control, because that allows somebody else to take control of the camera. Disable video filters so that they can't bring in like Snapchat filters or camera filters into it. Enable guest participant identification. And here's why. Not everybody, in this case, not everybody for this meeting signed in with their KSD. They signed in with a different email. And so that popped up in my participant settings, showing that somebody who's not within that KSD platform or KSD user ID joined the meeting. Now, I trust that since I shared the link in a private way, that all of you are working for KSD, but I can also see that you signed in with a guest participant email as well. And then I would also enable the join from browser link. And that join from browser link, just like you did today, allows you to select that link and join right away. All right, email notifications. So you can make changes to when attendees join meetings before the host or when a meeting is canceled. I know that my settings are set so that nobody can join before me, so I don't enable that. But I do encourage you to enable when a meeting is canceled. That way, if you have to change your meeting, your students or parents or whoever it is that you're meeting with will get a notification and they will thank you that they didn't show up to a meeting that you had canceled. All right, and that last section, here are some other things that you can look at. You can blur the snapshot on iOS Task Switcher, and basically what that means is in iOS devices, that can blur out any personal information. I'm not 100% sure how that works because I don't use iOS devices, but that is something that is an option. You can send that invitation email in multiple languages. So you can change it to Spanish, you can change it to French, whatever it is that you need. There's, I believe there's like 30 different languages that you can change that email invite language to. And the last one is setting schedule privileges. If you want somebody to be able to set Zoom meetings for you, you can enable that. Or if they want to set it so you can schedule for them, you can do that as well. And I see a question popped up. Is this something a good time, Lori?
Yes, sorry. Now I've got to find my okay. Rebecca Wurzberger asked, do these settings stay enabled or not enabled for all meetings until changed, or do they have to be set each time?
So right here, they are set. So they take some time, but setting these settings in the navigation toolbar will make these the go-to or the default settings for every other meeting that you set from here on out.
And where do we find all of these settings? Only some of them are seen right now.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through that in just a moment. Any other questions?
That's all.
Okay. All right. So I am going to go through the recording settings. That's real fast. And there's one more. Oh, and the telephone settings. And then I'm going to show you where you can find all of these settings. All right. So in the recording settings, so as we mentioned, when you're on the settings toolbar, you have or on the navigation toolbar in the settings section, you have three things. You have the meetings, you have the recordings, and you have telephone. So now we've moved from the meeting into the recording. So you'll see that there are a couple of different options. The big things here, enable local recording. That's the only recording that we can do. The cloud recording is disabled. And then also disable automatic recording. I've thought about enabling this, but for when I do professional development, but when I do it with students, I can't record right away, and I certainly can't record faces. And so I would just encourage you to disable that automatic recording so you don't have to worry about it. All right, and so now we've moved into telephone options. You can show international numbers, you can choose country location, third-party audio. There's a lot of different options. The one thing that I would make sure that you definitely do is mask phone numbers in the participant list, and here's why. Sometimes you're gonna have kids joining your Zoom meeting from a telephone, and you don't want their number blasted out for everybody to see. So make sure that you select that mask phone numbers so that no one can see their a student's phone number. All right, so we've gone through a lot of information, and hopefully you have this bit.ly open, that PDF, so that you can go back and look through it, because in just a few moments you're going to get an opportunity to practice. However, before you go to practice, I'm going to go ahead and show you where you can find all of these on the actual screen. I have to move my toolbar. There we go. All right, so are you seeing a new tab? I hope.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going into zoom.us. Now, right now I'm signed in, so it shows my account over here on the right-hand side. If you haven't signed in before, it's going to show sign in. But for now, I'm just gonna go to my account because I'm already signed in. And this is going to be your navigation toolbar. You can see my profile, meetings, webinars, recordings, settings, account profile. So all of these things are on that navigation toolbar. And it seems kind of weird, so we're dropping down to settings. So I know we're not going in order, and that goes against everything that I believe, but I feel settings is that most important thing that you need to be looking at. So when you select settings, you're right here, and now you see those 3 different options. We've got meetings, recordings, and telephone. Now, we're going to go back to the meetings, and underneath you'll see the different categories that we talked about that you could set your meetings for. Now, you can select each of these, or you can just scroll down. It's whatever your preference is. Oops. So you can see there's the security section. You scroll down some more. Here's your schedule meeting. In meeting basic, there's a lot. In meeting advanced, email notification, other. So that is where you find the settings for meeting, recording, and telephone. Okay? Now we're going to go back in. So you're going to have an opportunity to do a couple of things. So first we're going to reflect, and then you're going to have an opportunity to set your settings. Now, when we do this, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms, and I want to be clear on the breakout rooms and how we're using them this time. When I send you to a breakout room this time, you're going to be all by yourself. And here's why. Sometimes I talk too much, and when I'm talking to other people, some participants get distracted. And so you're going to have an opportunity to focus and do what you need to do to reflect and to set your settings in an independent environment. This is something that you can use with your students. So a strategy I like to use is have students come up with a response or an answer on their own, and then come back and share it with a partner or with the class. You can use this type of breakout room for this in the same way. So in this breakout room, your job is to work on your reflection by clicking on this link and then going in and setting your settings, but you're going to do it independently. If you need help, down at the bottom in the breakout room is a little tab that says ask for help. You can click that and I will get a notification that you are asking for assistance, and I can join your breakout room. So I know there's a lot of information there. Just main things, we're going to be doing these next 2 slides. So schedule the reflection, and then then setting your Zoom settings, and then we'll come back together, and you'll be doing that in your breakout room. Questions before we get started? Now, I realize now I told you that we were going to try some other apps like Padlet. I want to show you Jamboard as well before we go to breakout rooms. All you have to do in Jamboard, so your job is to think of your top 3 priorities for determining settings. So you're going to click on the Jamboard image, and it's going to take you to this Jamboard page. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's all anonymous. And so don't be shy about sharing your answers or sharing the things that are your priority, because nobody's going to know who said it. Please try to be appropriate. I trust you. All right, so when you get to this page, you'll see the prompt, what 3 settings your top priority. You can go over here to the left-hand side where it says sticky note. It's right here in the middle. It looks like a sticky note. Select that sticky note, and you can type in your answers. So this is my practice. Berg. So that's a terrible answer, but that's just an example. You can change the color. If you want to get crazy, green's my favorite color, so I'm going to use green, and then select save. And that's all you have to do. If you don't see your sticky note, it might be over somebody else's. So for example, mine was over find setting. So there we go. Now I can move it. So you have 3 minutes to set your priorities. Think about your priorities, reflect on your priorities, and add them to our Jamboard, and then go in and start setting your own settings. All right, so welcome back. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I did have some questions. Somebody asked to see where we could find all those settings again, and so I'll show you. Again, so we have, once you are in, here again, we'll go to zoom.us, so we'll start from the beginning. And you guys will notice right over here on the right-hand side, it might say log in, or you can go to my account, select my account, and then you should have the settings over here on the left where you have profile, meetings, webinar, recording, settings, account profile in your navigation toolbar. Now, the one thing that we did discover is if you have your screen split in half, you may not see that, and you may need to move the little gray bar that allows you to move the page from side to side. You may need to do that in order to see your screen. But once you're in zoom.us and you've signed in, you'll be on your navigation bar that looks like this, and then you'll have all of your settings over here on the left: profile, meetings, webinars, recordings, settings, and account profile. All right, so if you're still working, feel free to keep working, but we are going to go ahead and move on because now we're going to talk about setting meetings. So we have, when you're in that navigation toolbar, we've been on the settings navigation tab, but now we're headed to meetings. And so in that navigations option for meetings, you can see upcoming meetings, previous meetings, that personal meeting room. You can have meeting templates, and then you're, of course, going to schedule a new meeting, which is where we're at. All right, so in the schedule a meeting, or on the navigation toolbar for meetings, there's a blue button, and I apologize for my pictures. They're they're blurry because they're screenshots. So in that navigation toolbar for meetings, you're going to select schedule a new meeting. You're going to give that meeting a title. You're going to schedule the meeting time and length, and then you will see where you can adjust those meeting settings. And those settings that are already showing are based upon the settings you had done in your navigation settings toolbar, but sometimes you may want to change them, but they default to what you set up in your navigation settings. And there may just be times when you want to switch it. At the very bottom, you can save the meeting. There's also a link where you can save as a template if you want to use the exact same meeting format for multiple meetings. Then once you are in the meetings and you've set your meeting, you can go in and you can share that meeting. And you can share that meeting in a couple of different ways. So you're going to go into that sharing a meeting tab. Under meetings, you'll see where it says upcoming meetings. And then you'll find a bunch of different links. So you can see the screenshot of mine. I had 4 upcoming meetings. All you have to do is go to that blue hyperlinked tab, and you'll open that up, and you'll see a message. And in that pre-populated message, there's a button that says copy invitation, such as right here. And then you can copy and paste that link in your preferred method of communication. So you can post it in your Google Classroom. I know that's not on your PDF, but we can give you an updated version. You can post it on your Google Classroom. You can send it through email. You can send it through text. You can send it through Facebook Messenger. For example, I have a standing meeting with my family so that I can practice these tools, and we send it through Messenger. The other thing is that your message can be edited as needed before you send. All right, and so again, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through that on my own toolbar, and then you'll have an opportunity to practice. So I'm going to go back to my navigation bar for Zoom, and now instead of being in settings, I'm going to move up to meetings. And here you can see your different meetings: upcoming meetings, previous, personal, and meeting templates. And then here's where you schedule a new meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and select schedule a new meeting. And I'm going to, my topic is practice Zoom, probably number 45, because I've practiced this a lot. I can use a template. I have a Screencastify template or not. And I'm going to set this meeting for maybe 1:30, not in the morning. There we go. All right, so 1:30 this afternoon. Everything, it's not recurring. Everything else is based upon my settings that I set in my navigation toolbar. And I just select save. Now I have my meetings. So now, how do I find my meeting? I go to upcoming meetings, and it's here. I'm on the upcoming meetings toolbar, and you can see now in my topic, I have practice Zoom number 45. And in order to get that information that I need to send it out, I'm going to collect this link or click this link. On a side note, you'll see you have your meeting ID, you have start, you can delete, which I'm going to do when I'm done here. But for now, we're going to go ahead and share that link. So I'm going to select, and I can do a couple of things. So I can highlight the invite link, I can type in the meeting ID, I can show the passcode and type it in, or as I suggested, just copy the invitation. So I hit copy invitation, everything is here. I can copy that meeting invitation and then close. So now I'm going to post my meeting invitation into the chat. Please don't click on it because I'm not gonna be there. But in the chat, I'm going to post it. Now, the one thing I would encourage you to do is there's a lot of information here, and you probably don't need it all. So if it were me, and I don't know that you can even see this, but if it were me, I would just go to the end of passcode where you start the mobile phones, and you can just delete that. And then when you're done, hit enter. So now in the chat, you should all be seeing this chat for practice Zoom number 45. Again, don't click on the link because I'm not going to be there. All right, so back to our tabs. And now you get a chance to apply. So here's your job on your own, is now you're going to set and schedule a meeting, and I want you to share that Zoom meeting link in the chat. Again, don't worry because you can delete the meeting afterwards. But you have about 2 minutes to set a meeting and then post it to the chat. If you've got questions, feel free to ask. In this case, you're probably going to want to ask them verbally because those chat is going to be filled up with Zoom links. All right, 2 minutes, ready, go. All right, so if you're still adding your link to the chat, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you're listening as we're gonna go ahead and move on into this managing and interacting. And I apologize, settings take a long time, but they're really important and it does set the stage for everything else that you do. So now we're getting into that managing and interacting piece. All right, so when you are managing your meeting, so we need to start that actual meeting. So you can go back into that navigation toolbar in the meetings and your upcoming meetings and find the meeting that you are looking for, and you just select start. And then you'll have a couple of different pop-ups. Open the Zoom, select your join with computer audio. Now, I do want to give you one heads up. So up to this point, I could show you what to do on my own screen because I wasn't in a recording. But now we're in those recording features. So this managing and interacting, the lectures, presentations, all of those features, I can't show you within a Zoom meeting because we're already in the Zoom meeting. And you're not able to open up 2 separate Zoom meetings on the same device. So I apologize in advance. Feel free to look around as you're doing that. That's why you have so many screenshots. But I just want you to know right now that I can't show them to you because when I share my screen, it doesn't show up for you and I can't open up a new Zoom meeting. All right, so again, you're in that navigation toolbar, you're in your upcoming meetings, you find it and you select start. So in your meeting features, you're going to have a bunch of different things that you can manage. So meeting details, settings, audio control, video control, security, manage participants, chat, share screen, record, breakout rooms and reactions. It's all there somewhere, and they all have different functions within your Zoom meeting. So the first thing we're going to look at is meeting features, and you may not have noticed them before. They're going to be located in the upper left-hand corner of your Zoom screen, and they're super, super tiny, can barely see them. But in that, you have the first one, which identifies the details of the meeting. So it's going to say like your Zoom link, it's going to say your passcode, all of those things. So if you need that information, it's right there, upper left-hand corner. The second thing you're going to have is the in-recording links to adjust settings. You can select that and you have access to all of the settings. They're going to be the same as in the navigation page. It just might look a little bit different. And those are located in that upper left corner. Down at the bottom on the right hand side, you can manage your audio settings. And we've all seen where we can mute, but if you hit the little arrow next to it, then you can also manage your settings, which allows you to select the appropriate microphone, the speaker, you can test things, you can switch to different audio settings. And then down at the very bottom where it says audio settings, again, that's going to take you to the same settings as that you would see in navigation. It's going to look a little bit different. I believe it shows the app, it visualizes like the app shows, but it's got all of the same information. And so you can select the appropriate microphone. For example, I had to switch my microphone because I have an external speaker / microphone, but when I use that external microphone, it sounds really echoey. It doesn't come across very good. So I switched back to my laptop microphone, and you might have to test things out and do the same thing. I kept my speaker the same as my external speaker. Now, next to that, you have your managing video settings. Again, we've all seen stock video where you can turn your video on and off, but you can also select your camera, choose a virtual background or not, and you can select those video settings, which again takes you to the same settings as is in navigation. Now, the one thing I would say is that has to do with virtual backgrounds. So a lot of people were experimenting with virtual backgrounds when this first started, and they're really, really cool. The problem I had with virtual backgrounds for myself was that every time I moved, and if you haven't noticed, I'm definitely a mover when I'm talking, it got really blurry. Or if I took a drink of coffee, it would get really blurry and half of me would disappear. You can change or fix some of that blurriness if you have a green screen or green paper or something like that behind you, but it doesn't ever completely go away. The other thing that you need to know about virtual backgrounds is that students cannot use them on Chromebooks. And so we can say, hey, set up your virtual background, but it doesn't work on a Chromebook. And then we're going to talk about this. So this is another great lesson. If you lose your meeting because of your Wi-Fi, it's okay. Just open it back up and it should be okay. So I apologize for that. Again, I mentioned earlier that using technology can sometimes be messy, and you just have to be able to kind of go with the flow and just push through some of that mess and that mud, because once you push through, you can do some really awesome things. All right, so I'm gonna get back into my screen. I am a little flustered though, and my kids were very concerned that they had lost access to Roblox, so. All right. Okay, let me find, there we go. Am I in the right? Nope, there we go. I must have hit a lot of buttons. All right, we got to security, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
right before it, I think, yeah.
Right before that, okay, so we're checking out video. Oh, we were talking about virtual backgrounds and video settings. So again, like I said, if virtual backgrounds are your thing, you can totally do it. I would encourage you to use a green screen if you want to eliminate that blurriness, or, and again, your kids, if they're on a Chromebook, virtual backgrounds don't work. All right, so now we are in the in-meeting features for security. And so here are some of those settings that you can work with. You can lock the meeting, and you can enable waiting room. And again, this is already set because it was set within my general settings already. You can also enable participants to share screen, chat, and rename themselves. There's a couple of things I want to tell you. So that lock meeting feature is a great idea in theory. But for example, if you are in a meeting and say somebody loses their Wi-Fi and gets kicked out, if that meeting is locked, they can't get back in. And if that happens, that's okay. You just have to remember to unlock it if somebody gets kicked. So just keep that in mind. I don't remember that often, and so I just keep the lock meeting unlocked or not enabled, because I just end up locking people out and forgetting to check again. So just keep that in mind. If you lock that meeting and somebody gets kicked, they're not going to be able to get back in. All right, so in meeting features, we've got that chat, opening up the chat. This is great. We've talked about we want our students to be able to communicate with one another, and it's really important for that social emotional growth is to be able to have some interaction. The one thing I would say, it's great to communicate as a class and as an individual. Again, I would encourage you until you get more comfortable using chat to not allow them to chat peer-to-peer. There's just too many things that can happen when you can't see what they're saying unless they're really trained. So definitely practice with the chat before you decide to allow them to go peer-to-peer. You'll notice over here too, when you hit that chat, there is a more button with an arrow, and it allows people to save the chat, share the meeting file, or share files within the meeting. And then you can also, again, change who can chat with who. And I remembered, I saw yesterday that I was supposed to delete this slide and I forgot. Sorry about that. All right, so now we're in lectures and presentations. So back to those tools. So this is where we get to those types of tools that you can share when you are giving instruction. So you have in your share screen, you have three sharing tools. Three sharing tools. You have basic, advanced, and file. And again, when you have that little arrow right next to it, it allows you to determine the number of participants that can share at one time and gives you some advanced share options. So I mentioned there are three different types of things that you can share. Or there's basic, there's advanced, and there's files. For some of you, that files part might not be enabled. I noticed that yesterday with someone else that it wasn't enabled. I'm not quite sure why that happens. So if that happened to you, then you may want to contact IT and just see how you can get that taken care of. So we'll go through the different features. In basic, you have screens, and as I mentioned, we have two screens, or I have two screens, so it shows two screens. We have a whiteboard. You can connect your phone or iPad, and these were the different tabs I had open. So those are in basic. Now, some of you mentioned you really liked that I had music playing when you entered, and this is where you can set that setting. In the share screen, down at the bottom, it allows you to share computer sound. When you click that, then people will be able to hear what's coming out of your computer. This is great when you're sharing YouTube videos. You can also select next to it, it's the optimized screen sharing. So if you're sharing those videos, hit that and it will adjust things to make it the best possible video when you're sharing those video clips. So this was one of the biggest ahas because I like to play music and I like to play music in my classroom. So being able to share that computer sound, that was a big moment for me. So those are all in basic settings for basic share settings. When you go to advanced, you can share part of your screen, so not the whole screen. You can share music and sound only. You can also connect your document camera. And I haven't done that because I've been working from home the entire time I've been Zooming. But my understanding is it's pretty easy to do, especially when you're in school, because when your document camera is connected to your computer, because you'll be right there. I just don't have that right now because I'm working from home. And then you've got your file settings. So you've got Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, whatever your preference is, it's there. So you can share files directly from your share settings. All right, so this screen is what you see once you are sharing. A second aha moment for me was this little arrow right here. And what that does is that it can attach your toolbar to the top of your screen or to the bottom. And until I found this, I was always dragging my toolbar and it was always in the way. It was never in a spot that was out of the way. So once you discover this, it made a huge difference for me because now that toolbar is either attached to the very top, or if you click that arrow, it can be attached to the very bottom. You also have all of the same settings you would see within Zoom when it's just a regular meeting. And then a big thing is check out this more button, because this more button, when you're sharing, allows you to monitor chats, breakout rooms, record. All of those different features are right in there. And of course, you can even end the meeting from here if you need to. Do we have any questions right now, Lori? Or are we good?
Let's see. Oh, I'm unmuted. The last question was, does that change it on the student screens too?
When you share your screen? Yes, it does. So when you share your screen, your students are seeing everything that's on your screen.
And Kelly is wondering, can we connect to our smart board?
That I don't know. I'm sure that there might be something you can take a look at. Honestly, that's above my pay grade.
I do think on at least our laptops, I don't know about Chromebooks, that there is a place where you can present to a wireless device or something. And so if it might be where your smart board can act as another monitor type thing. And if you select whatever's on your smart board, might then show like another monitor that you could share your screen with. I don't know how that would look. But
my guess is if it's connected, it's probably in one of those basic or advanced features. It's my best guess. I'm not 100% sure, but after this, I'm happy to help figure out the solution to that.
Yeah, it's worth pursuing. That's a good question, Kelly.
All right, so we've talked about your toolbar. Now, one of the options we haven't discussed too much is those recording options. And so you can begin your recording, pause your recording. That's what I've been doing as we've been going. Stop your recording. Once you are done, every single recording that you have converts to an MP4 and saves to your computer. And so this is the process that it goes through. So when you're done, or when you're done with the meeting, you can record this meeting to this computer, hit continue. That's going to enable the recording. And then when you're done, it's going to show this blue message down at the bottom that says it will be converted to an MP4. Here are some lessons from experience, is that you cannot record in Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic or Loom or other recording extensions or apps while you're recording in Zoom. Your camera is dedicated to one recording feature. You can't record within a recording. The other thing is that you can't minimize windows when recording. And then the big one here for me is don't forget to hit record when you want to record. And so those are some lessons that you can learn from the recording. For me, I have a sticky note that says hit record to help me remember.
And that was one of my first three things that you had us list on the Padlet, was I have it in a setting that I always record every Zoom that I hold, because at the end, you get when it's all done, you get a notice that says it's converting. And if I didn't want it recorded, I just stop converting it and it deletes it. But at least I don't have to remember to hit record if I wanted it.
That's a great point. And especially depending on your purpose, you may want to change some of those recording settings. So like for you, it makes sense because a lot of the things that you're doing are totally going to need to be recorded. And so having that already set is a great way to go. When you want to end the meeting, you're going to find that end meeting button right down at the very bottom on the right hand side. It'll say end meeting for all or leave meeting. Please, 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 when you're the teacher, hit end meeting for all so that it ends the meeting for everyone. If you just hit leave meeting, then your students will be able to continue the meeting without you, and you don't want to do that. You can also find, again, in that toolbar, if you are sharing your screen, you can find it under that more tab down at the very bottom. All right, so now we're getting into quizzes, small groups, and activities. When I was doing this, one of the really cool things was checking out all the different platforms that you can use within Zoom. So if you haven't tried hosting a Kahoot, or there's also quizzes, Gimkit, Boom Learning, or Boom Cards, and like Quizlet Live, you can use all of those things within Zoom. You would share your screen, but you would set it up just like you would with your students. The one thing I found is Quizlet Live independently works great. Quizlet Live in Teams is a little bit tougher because it's just harder to do. But Kahoot is a great one where you can use these competitive platforms and you're just sharing it to your screen. And we were going to do one, but I don't want to, I want to be able to get to that opportunity where you guys can look at some different ways to engage your students. And so we're going to move on. But if you want to check that out at some point, that's a great way to get your kids engaged. All right, so breakout rooms, and you guys have had some experience with breakout rooms in two different ways. So you've got, when you want your kids to work in collaborative groups, 3 to 5 kids is ideal, but it's really whatever your preference is. And then again, you can assign breakout rooms to have only one student to give them some of that independent work time. You have 2 options where you can assign it automatically or randomly, or which is what I did when I set you together in your groups, or you can manually select which kids you want to work together. You can also, once you set that breakout room and you come back, you can recreate breakout rooms, which is what I had to do so that you guys went from working in a whole group to working independently. The one thing that you cannot do is push out a shared screen. And what that means is if I have a document I want everybody to see, I can't share it and it shows up in the breakout room. That's not how it works. If you want them to have a document that they're working on, you need to share that document with the students in their Google Classroom or whatever, or Seesaw or whatever platform you're using. But you cannot share it on your you cannot share it in your Zoom meeting and expect it to show up in the breakout room. So that's something important to know. Once you are setting up your breakout room, this is where you can assign the number of participants. Right now it says 0 participants in one room because I was setting up my own breakout room and I was the only one in the Zoom meeting, so that's why it shows that. But today when I was setting up your meetings, it said assign 30 participants. And so I could assign 30 participants into 30 rooms, or I can assign 30 participants into fewer rooms. The nice thing is that, you know, if you're not a math person, down here at the bottom, this number changes for every number that you change up here in the number of rooms. So if we had 30 people and I wanted 6 rooms, it would show 5 people per room. If we wanted 4 rooms, it would show 4 to 5 people per room. I'm not sure on the math, but you get the idea, is that those numbers are going to change based on the number that you have selected in this box. And this is where you would select automatically or manually, and then you could create rooms. There's also right over here on the right-hand side, and I noticed I covered it up, is that More button, which allows you to move participants into the breakout rooms automatically, allows them to come back to the main session at any time. You can select the amount of minutes that you want them in the breakout room, which is where I made that mistake on your independent time, was I had set it for 5 instead of 10. And then you can enable a countdown to just give your kids a warning to know they have so many seconds before they come back. So looking for recommendations with breakout rooms, because I know a lot of people get really nervous. Here is my suggestion. Establish some protocols and success criteria. Just like you would do when you're talking about how you work in groups in school, in the classroom, you need to do that same type of thing within your Zoom meeting. If you don't do that, then your kids aren't going to know what to expect, and it could become a free-for-all. I don't guarantee, it may not, but it's super important to establish those protocols and success criteria. Practice through low-stakes activities like we did at the beginning, and then definitely teach them to ask for help. So here's what we're going to do now. I want you to reflect on how you might use Zoom as an educator. I was initially going to have you do a flip grid, but we're not going to do that now for the sake of time. But I want you to think, how might you use Zoom as an educator, and what are 2 ways that you can use Zoom? So how's this learning going to impact students, and what are those barriers that get in the way? And I want you, so think about those. We'll give you about a minute to think about ways that you can use Zoom. And then I want you to think about a barrier and what you can overcome. And instead of doing that flip grid, just post it in the chat. So what are 2 things that you can do to use Zoom? And what's a barrier and how you can overcome it? and share in the chat. All right, so now we're getting into attendance and recording. Now, there used to be a little tab on the left-hand side that said reports where you could take attendance. Right now that feature is inactivated, but once it does become reactivated, definitely take a look here at the PDF and you can see the updates for that. So it is available, just not right now. So now we're gonna move on to that next thing, which is recordings. And as we talked in the navigation page, under recordings, there are two options. The first one is cloud recordings, and that's just not enabled for KSD. The next one is local recordings, and local recordings save to your computer. It creates a folder entitled Zoom. You can rename your and it creates MP4 files that you can rename, and you can also rename your folders. When you are done with your meeting and you select End at the bottom lower right-hand corner, you're going to get a notice that says Convert Meeting Recording. If you want to keep that recording, then you just allow it to convert. If you don't, then you can just select Stop Converting, and then it will delete that recording. The next thing is that when it saves to your computer, it's going to save with multiple files. So the first time I saw that, that kind of freaked me out because I didn't know what was going on. But all it is it's saving just the audio, and then it's also saving the actual Zoom meeting. And you'll notice I have two audio files. That means I started and stopped and then started again within that Zoom meeting. So because I stopped my recording in the middle and then started again, that's how many audio files or Zoom files. When you're wanting to share your video with someone or with your students or with other teachers, then you're going to go into that Zoom file. That's the file you're going to upload and share. All right, so now we're getting into that Zoom for Education piece. And something that is really, really important within virtual classrooms is something called the 4 C's. And you'll see it all over the place. If you want to learn more about it, definitely check out the play button down below. It's going to give you a little bit of information from Common Sense Media. But basically the 4 C's are: what are you doing to help your students communicate, collaborate, think creatively, and do critical thinking? So the activities that you are using within Zoom, you really want to make sure that they're hitting some of those criteria in order to be most effective. And Zoom is a great way that you can work on those 4 C's with your students. Communication is very important. It's going to be a life skill that they need to work on. And so anytime you can allow them to communicate and collaborate, as well as think creatively and practice critical thinking skills, it's going to be super important. So now moving on, what we have here is we have this opportunity for some applications. So you'll notice within the Zoom for Education tab, I have included 10 activities that are designed to help students work on those collaboration skills, creativity, critical thinking, and communication skills. And so you'll notice we have 5 and 5, which is how we started off the day. You'll see in all of these activities, they are going to be determined who's going to do them, so students or teacher, and also where, whether it's in whole class or in breakout room. So again, we have Kahoot, Frey or a Friend. So you'll notice here it says click the link. If you like the description of what Frey or a Friend is, or you want more information, just click the title here at the top and you'll get a template that talks about what you do and it walks you through the process. And so there are 10 activities. Check them out. Some are going to be great for younger kids. Some are going to be great for older kids. If you don't like them, it's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Look for something that does fit. The most important thing is how are you engaging your students so that they can work on communicating and collaborating, thinking critically, and being creative. The job within here is that, or for the rest of this task, is that your job is to look through all of these Zoom for Education resources and look for some that you can use to start off the year with your students. If, again, if you don't see anything that works for you, you can go into the additional education resources. And so we've got things from Edu Protocols, Infused Classroom, Vivify STEM Education, Hooked on Innovation, First Day of School Glyphs, a lot of resources that may work for what you need. The last part, I want you to take a look at before you leave is in the help. Uh-oh. Is in the help section. And so these are all based on Zoom help resources. So these Zoom resources are going to help you, and you can refer to them if you're struggling with things. You see, we've got Zoom for EDU, Zoom Download Center, accessibility for Zoom, and COVID-19 support. So all of these are going to be based on actual Zoom resources, where the additional ed resources are for education. So go ahead, take some time, check out the different activities in Zoom for Education, and look and see if you can find 1 or 2 activities that's going to work for you and work for your students. All right, so welcome back. So now that you've taken a look at several different activities that you might be able to use in your classroom, hopefully you are figuring out how you can incorporate Zoom and engage your students in a way that's going to allow them to be creative, to think collaboratively, to communicate, and be critical thinkers. Before you finish up, I want you to be reflective on what you learned today in Zoom. So what is it that you liked about Zoom, that you didn't like, what was easy, and what was hard? Because when you reflect on these things and you really think about and internalize them, it's going to make incorporating Zoom into your day so much easier. After that, I encourage you to take the time, stop, and create a Zoom room and go through all of those features that we learned about in the managing and interacting, the lectures and presentation, the quiz and small groups, and the recording section. It's going to give you an opportunity to familiarize yourself with all of the different features of Zoom that you can use as you are participating in a Zoom meeting and then as you close it out. Thank you for joining this Zoom for Beginners, and I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me, and I will help you out the best I can. Have a great day.